Are you ready to thrive in the UK food manufacturing industry? Welcome to Forking Delicious podcast, stories of UK food manufacturing success with Jaz Notay and Alvin Narsey. Join Jaz and Alvin as they chat with business owners, industry pros and experts, sharing real challenges, smart solutions, and practical insights to help you grow your business and thrive. Tune in now.
Welcome to the Forking Delicious podcast. Hey, Jaz.
Hey, Alvin. Hey, listeners.
Awesome. So today we're going to be talking about the second series in preparing your business for sale. We're going to be talking about operational excellence for maximizing the value of your business. In the previous episode, we talked about essentially financial foundations, making sure you keep your financials nice and clean, why you need to do that, and so on and so forth. So if you haven't already listened to that episode, please make sure you go back and do that. Today, we're going to be, like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about if you are the business, how it's going to be a challenge for you to sell it. And also we're going to be talking about what we call the transferability premium, why doing this work now adds 20 to 40% to your sale price. So Jaz, let's talk about breaking the owner dependency trap. Is one of the things that we see all the time when we look at and work with food manufacturing business owners.
Yeah. Do you want to elaborate on what the owner business trap is, just to remind our listeners?
That's a really good idea. So the owner business trap is basically when the owner is the crux of the business, and it's where the owner is the business. So what does that mean? That means if you're the owner and you're doing everything in your business, so that means you're the person that's getting in all the sales, processing the sales, doing most of the production in the factory, doing the HR, doing the finances, and where you are the person that everybody comes to make decisions made for them. That means that the business is dependent on you. And you need to think of it like, what happens when you go away for a couple of weeks on holiday? Does the business run without you, or does it not? And so when the business depends on you, this decreases the value of your business. And so why?
Well, to add to that as well, Alvin, so not just from the operational side, but also from the sales side and the supplier purchasing side. So if you're having all the relationships with all the suppliers, you're having all the relationships with all the customers, business is very much dependent on you and your relationships with those customers and those suppliers and those different stakeholders.
Yeah, and it may not be apparent to you why this is actually bad or why this is not a good idea when it comes to selling your business. Because if you put yourself in the shoes of the buyer of your business, they've got to come in and there's an inherent risk for them because you're the person with all the relationships, like Jaz said, with the suppliers and so forth. And you've probably got no contracts in place because you've known these guys forever. You've got, they're your mates. And so it's going to make it very challenging from a perceptive point of view. And also in reality, it's going to be challenging for the new seller to come in and continue those relationships if you don't already have contracts in place. So that's one of the red flags that we see continuously when food manufacturing.
And it's very much a generational thing as well, Alvin, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the older business owners, that's the way that we've done business before, and that's the way they've always done it. But it's not necessarily the best way when you're going to sell your business and when you're trying to maximize the value of your business. So if you're the only person that's doing everything and you've got these relationships, that can kill the deal, essentially. So Jaz, let's talk about, building your management layer. So if you are the owner who is the business, what are some steps we can take to, minimize, transfer, build that second management layer we're talking about?
Yeah. So I think the key thing is to have a look at people within your business and actually be able to, I guess it starts from the hiring. When you hire people, make sure you hire people who can grow with the business and who you can give the responsibility to manage certain things on your behalf. So you can delegate to them to take on certain roles. And it might not happen straight away. It might take time to train that person, but actually make sure you take the time to invest in that person to ensure that person grows with your business. And by identifying those people within the business and giving them roles, specific roles within the business, which you delegate to them, frees you up to do other things. So the business is no longer dependent on you, but it's dependent on that layer of management that you've implemented and you've delegated responsibility to.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the best ways to do that is to have a simple org chart, right? Like a lot of owners think it's a corporate term, but literally just on a piece of paper, just looking at first of all, it's looking at you and all the key roles that you are actually doing yourself, and then putting that in, and then figuring out which of those roles should I not be doing. Because essentially, Jaz, what should a business owner be doing in their business, right?
So a business owner should be doing as little as possible within the business in terms of physical work, but actually what they should be doing is bringing the team together and having the overall strategy. So they sit as a CEO or a chairman, but they should not be doing any day-to-day work. There'll be instances where you have to roll up your sleeves and get involved because staff haven't turned up and you've got to get deliveries out. Absolutely understand that, but that should just be the rare occasions. But on a day-to-day basis, the business owner should not be doing anything within the business except the strategy and making sure all the different parts of the business, all the different departments of the business are working together to achieve the values and the mission of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And we hear this all the time. If you've ever worked with a business coach, they always tell you to work on the business, not in it, right? But the reality is it can be super challenging for any business owner to start to do that. That letting go is really challenging, the first thing. And the second thing is, like, what's the process to actually figure out how do I actually work on the business? And like Jaz mentioned, it's about getting the key people in place, preparing the org chart to figure out what roles need to be filled in the business, and then working your way slowly from there.
Before you get to that org chart, it's also documenting everything you do on a day-to-day basis, what you really need to do because only you can do, and then actually looking at the other items, listing them and putting them in another list of things that you could delegate to other people. And you can start doing that quite quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, documenting all your systems and procedures is so important. And a lot of owners struggle with this because it actually takes time to do. And I think there's this misconception that you have to get it right the first time. And we see this all the time, that business owners don't want to do this part. But really, it's about taking that first step and just taking imperfect action. And we always recommend that you do some sort of audit. Your daily audit is a great place to start if you're a business owner. Just start to write down in a little notebook on all the actual things that you do in a day. Do that for a week, and then you can start to group things together. And then that way you can delegate it, but also just start with a simple recording system. And your version 1 might be just a simple Google Doc or a Word document or something like that. And then later on, as you get more sophisticated, as you start embracing systems and procedures, you can move to a cloud-based platform or something similar. But Jaz, so why is it important that an owner does this, documents their systems and procedures?
Well, firstly, if anything happens to the owner, forget the selling of a business, but if anything happens to the owner, so they get hit by a bus or something like that, if everything's in the owner's head, how's that business going to function without having those documents, those procedures and processes documented? At least if they're all written down, somebody else can take charge and actually run the business. Secondly, if in the case of a sale of a business, if all those procedures are in the owner's head, that's massively going to devalue the value of the business. And if you're looking to sell, you want to maximize what money you can get for your business. And if those processes are in your head, there is no business there without the owner. So it's really important to have those written down.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the new owner or the new buyer of your business wants to see that the business continues to function without you, the owner, being in there. And so the best way that they can see this, evidence of this, is to see systems and procedures that are in place. This gives the incoming buyer confidence that hopefully people are following systems and there are things in place. Because the last thing that any new owner wants to do is to come into a dog's breakfast and fix everything up. And if they have to do that, they will penalize you, the seller of the business, for that part, right? They'll just say, hey, it's too much work. It relies on you too much. And you need to get your, essentially your house in order.
Yeah, Absolutely. In terms of what things that should be documented, we've talked about systems and processes, but actually also things like recipes. So you've got specific recipes, because we all know that you buy something regularly and then the manufacturer changes one ingredient, and that can result in a reduction in sales. So if those recipes are documented, you can make sure that you're able to deliver the same quality of product and the same taste that people have become used to. Also things like customer preferences. So if you've got special nuances between different customers. Certain customers want deliveries only on a Monday or on a Wednesday, as opposed to a Thursday and a Friday. You've got to make sure all those things are documented, because they could tarnish relationships when a new buyer takes over. And then the other element, which is really, really key, is customer contracts and supplier contracts. You need to have those documented and saved somewhere, so a new buyer can refer back to them and have those the same terms that you had.
It's one of those things that's often overlooked, these customer contracts. And I guess when we're in the business, we don't see it to be a useful or a meaningful thing, but it actually presents a lot of risk perceptually. Looking from a new seller looking in to the business, if these aren't in place, right? Like it just makes you really, really scared, because there's no guarantee that the new owner moving forward will have access to the same deals, the contracts, so on and so forth. So you need to make sure that part of your business is watertight, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be robust.
Yeah, robust, watertight. It's all good. And essentially, one of the best ways, so once you do all these systems and procedures, you document them, you want to ensure that you can try this 2-week test that Jaz and I often talk about. It's making sure that can your business run for 2 weeks without you? And that's a really good test to see if your business is at a stage where it can be almost at its maximum level for a maximum sale price, right?
Absolutely. Go on holiday. How many times do we come across business owners who do go on holiday but end up taking their laptop and their phone with them and don't actually switch off, and they spend the whole time working? So actually a great test for you as a business owner would be to go on holiday and not have to pick up your phone once because of a work-related issue.
Absolutely. It seems like a far-fetched idea that you can actually do this. And sure, the first few times it's going to be a little bit challenging, but certainly it is a goal to work towards, right? Not only for yourself, to have peace of mind, but also later on down the track when you do decide to sell your business. So, So Jaz, in your experience, how long does all of this take to set up, to break out of this owner dependency trap?
So between 3 months to 12 months, I would say. But you could do it sooner. It depends on the individual and how willing they are to let go of put those boundaries in place. I've come across owners who have been able to do it very quickly because they needed the time off. They needed the space away from their business. Again, if you're so into the weeds, sometimes you can't see beyond a certain point, whereas sometimes it's good to actually step away and then step back into it to come up with new ideas and just a fresh perspective as well. But then I've come across business owners who just haven't been able to let go at all, so that greatly affects the sale price.
It's really challenging, right? Because some owners, it is quite a lot of work to set your business up like this, to be able to walk away from the day-to-day. And it's really, the sooner you start, the better you are, the better you become at documenting, letting go, delegating, putting together that management layer. So it does take a little bit of time. And remember, you don't have to do this alone, right? If you can work with consultants like us and coaches who can help you through this process, because it can become overwhelming if you don't know where to start. And if you work with somebody that can guide you in the right way, it just makes it so much easier and takes the stress out, right, Jaz?
Absolutely. And I think just talking from personal experience, being business owners as well, we've been there, we've done that. I've been on holiday. Actually, when I started my business, probably 7-8 years in, every holiday I would always take my laptop with me. But then actually something switched where I was like, well, the business needs to be independent from me, and I needed that time off. I needed that time and space with my family as well. So
yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, when we're looking at a business, if you're selling your business and it comes to that, not even during due diligence, but one of the things that we'll look at is your team, your management team, and sort of where you are in terms of running the day-to-day of the business. And if that's quite weak, that's going to reflect in the sale price or the EBITDA multiple, which we spoke about in the previous episode. And so you really want to ensure that you're doing the very best that you can to position your business for maximal sale price by implementing some of these things that we've just spoken about in this first segment to get out of the owner dependency trap, right? Jaz, anything else you would like to add?
I would. Thanks, Alvin. So just to touch on that, if you look at your team and you feel there isn't anybody in your team that could step up into that role of, I guess, a general manager, or, you know, that you couldn't delegate to, then actually maybe really reconsider your structure, your current structure, and see whether there's room to add somebody in and change the organizational structure so you could bring people on board where you can delegate to and step away from the business, because that will greatly add. It will be a cost at first and it might have an impact on your profitability, but actually in the long run, it will ensure you maximize the value on exit.
Absolutely. I think for some of our listeners who've got really smaller businesses, that's going to be a little bit challenging in the beginning, like you said. But if you think about the long-term future of the business and where you want it to grow, you can only take it to a certain point with you being at the crux. And at some point you will hit an inflection point where you need to have these in place, you know, these systems and this management team in place. And the sooner you can start thinking about it, because as we all know, Jaz, like hiring the right person can also take a little bit of time to find the right person, right? So you need to, once you not only think about the role, put together a position description, go out to the market and find that person, train that person. By the time they are sort of all guns blazing within the business, realistically can take anywhere from like 6 to 18 months, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. Now that we've covered a little bit about breaking the owner dependency trap, Jaz, let's move on to talk about, as a food manufacturing business, what are some of the must-haves that are sort of essential for us, I guess, in this industry, you know, when we're setting up our business?
Okay, well, for any food business, food compliance is absolutely mandatory. So that's your HACCP certifications, your SALSA certifications, your BRCGS certifications. Have you got those in place? Your food safety hygiene courses, everyone qualified, everyone handling food is qualified. It's making sure that you've got all those in place, because not only will that impact the multiple that you get on exit, also ensures that you're compliant with legal regulations as well.
Yeah, 100%. Also, one of the things I think we spoke about earlier, and we just want to reiterate again, is really scrutinizing your supplier relationships, making sure that you've got those contracts in place. And another thing that we see that we need to fix, Jaz, in a lot of businesses is the customer concentration risk, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So if you've got a business and say 70% of your business comes from one customer, and then tomorrow that customer goes somewhere else, your business valuation plummets massively, because they're going to take away 70% of your revenue, which will have a knock-on effect on your EBITDA. So actually, a lot of businesses which have a high customer concentration around maybe one or two customers tend not to attract such a high valuation. So it's best not to have all your eggs in one basket, spread the risk. So if you lose one customer, it's not going to have such a detrimental impact on your business.
Yeah, and sometimes this can be really contrary to what some business owners think, right? And many business owners we talk to are so proud that they've only got one or two customers. They've got this really deep, in-depth relationship with them. They know they get the best deals with this particular customer, or they've got the best trading terms, so on and so forth. But it's
usually on a handshake.
Usually on a handshake, yeah, which is also not very transferable to the new owner. But you really want to make sure that you really diversify the income stream that, your customer base that's coming through. And not only will they help you later on, but that's also actually going to help you right now, because going through that process of diversifying your customer base, really understanding who your ideal customers are, and then the marketing plan that goes out to acquire these new customers, it all just makes for really good business, right, Jaz?
Absolutely. So, a homework or a quick win is to have a look at your customer base now and what you can do to mitigate that risk. And it doesn't just go for customers, it also goes for your supply chain as well. So if you're heavily dependent on just one supplier, what happens if that supplier goes bust tomorrow? Who are you going to go to? It's going to have a knock-on effect on your business, because you're not going to be able to supply your customers and satisfy your customers. So actually, you need to ensure that you're mitigating the risk. Okay, fair enough. Some suppliers try and push you into an agreement where they give you more favourable rates if you get certain quantities or volumes from them, and you've got to hit those volume thresholds to get those rates, which is all fine and good, but actually it puts you in a position, in a very risky position. Should anything happen to that supplier, then that's going to have a knock-on effect on your business and your ability to deliver. So also look at your supply chain and look at what suppliers you're spending most with, and can you have a backup supplier should anything happen to the supplier that you've got these favorable terms with.
It sometimes can be a really tricky balancing act, but it's definitely an act that you need to start thinking about and getting prepared for, right? Because the last thing you want to be doing is scrambling at the very, very last minute trying to find another supplier, and hopefully you've got that all sorted out, right?
Yeah. Just one thing to also add is on the supply chain is just around the traceability of the products. So when you look at your suppliers, have you conducted an audit on that supplier? Do you understand where they are sourcing their products from? I think there was a case recently with one of the supermarkets where they had in their burgers, they had horse meat. And actually it transpired that the horse meat was coming from the supplier, but they hadn't done the checks on the suppliers. And the sales for the supermarket were massively impacted, because actually as an end consumer, you relate that product to that supermarket and not from where that supermarket has originally sourced the product from their suppliers. So actually make sure you're doing those checks so you don't have any dramas that will impact your sales going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, there's another thing that came to mind in terms of operational excellence that I think I would love to talk about as well, which is the importance of having contracts in place with your actual team members, right? Employment contracts are so important. It's something that's often overlooked. And I think, Jaz, you can talk about that later on. But also, one of the other things that is really important is to actually have written position descriptions. We spoke previously about putting together your org chart, but having written position descriptions with the actual roles that are with the role and expectations of your particular team members, along with an employment contract, is so important. And it's something that a lot of business owners neglect until it's too late.
Absolutely. And actually, or when they've done it when they've recruited the position, but actually the business has grown and that job description no longer satisfies the role that this person is fulfilling. So it's something you need to keep looking at. And as people buy business buyers, one of the things they look at and one of the information you will have to provide to the new buyers of the business are all the copies of all the contracts with key personnel. And it needs to demonstrate to the buyer that person, if you said the business can run independently of you, those contracts need to demonstrate whatever these key personnel are doing shows that they can run the business without the owner being present.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned personnel. Another thing that came up that we see a lot of is also ensuring that you've got systems in place for regular employee reviews, however that fits within your organization, and however that fits within the different levels of team members within the business. So certainly you want to be making sure, whether it's factory floor staff or whether it's the middle management layer or or the other positions in your business, you want to ensure that employee reviews in some way, shape, or form are occurring, being documented, and also that you as a business owner are taking away lessons from those employee reviews, because that's quite often the best time that you get to hear sort of in a one-on-one capacity what your employees think about the business, and you can talk to them, and quite often some of your best implementations / ideas will come from these sort of mini HR sessions, right? And a lot of business owners are scared of this. Certainly, a lot of us don't have the expertise to do this, but you can set up some simple frameworks that you can follow and eventually delegate to somebody else within the organization to do these kind of things. And having regular employee reviews, if you have that system in place, you can, as an outside buyer looking in, it just adds so much value to the business.
Mm-hmm. So just before we move on to the next segment then, Alvin, so in terms of quick wins, what could our listeners do in terms of quick wins? I would say have a look at contracts, whether you've got them in place. If you haven't, especially with your key customers, your key suppliers, and your key personnel. If you haven't got those contracts in place, then look at actively putting some contracts in place with those, and then slowly work towards, work down your whole list of all your employees, all your customers, all your suppliers. But for the short term, 0 to 3 months, work on the key players.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other thing is to start working out, start to leverage yourself out of the business, start to do a time audit for yourself, really start to put together the systems and procedures, even if you start very, very slowly, and just do a little bit at a time. I think that'll serve you really, really well further on down the track. Yeah.
Just one other thing I've just remembered, actually, Alvin. So they need to have all completed the food hygiene course, and they have to keep retraining. So you need to be ensuring that you're keeping training logs of every employee that's completed the course, and then every time they redo the course, that's all been logged, because that will really help you keep compliant, but also help with the valuation of your business as well.
Absolutely. Wow. Yeah. Team training, staff training is so important, and it's often overlooked, right? Because if you have a training system in place, that just shows, and that'll actually lead to more sales. And this is training for not only your floor staff, but your sales team as well. Having some sort of continuous development in an organization is always seen very favorably, right, from a seller that comes in, and it just adds to the value of your business immensely. So yeah, there's so many things that you can go down a rabbit hole. There are definitely so many things that you need to think about, and I think it's really important to, certainly when you decide to sell your business, I think it's really important to work with somebody who can put you on a structured path. Otherwise, you will just be running all over the place, right?
And just to reiterate that point on training, that training will identify your succession plan and people who can step into the roles that you can delegate to as well.
100%. Absolutely. Was there anything else, Jaz? I think we've covered quite a bit on the value of making yourself redundant in your business. Yeah.
Yeah, just to add other things that, what business owners could be doing to check. And this is a good exercise to do. Delegate some of your responsibility. Take some time out of the business to work on the business, and just actually really assess your business and do like a self audit or a self assessment on your business. Look at your management strength. Who have you got in the business? Who can you delegate to? Can your business run without you for 2 weeks? And do that exercise. Look at your documentation. What do you have? What's missing? What do you need to create? Look at your compliance records. What do you have? What's missing? Where's the gap? What do you need to do to fulfill that gap? And then start working towards that, because all these things are going to start adding value or increasing the value of your business when you come to exit.
And also give you less
take a proper holiday.
Yeah, for sure. Right. And you'll actually feel so much better as a business owner as well, right? Once you start to do these things. And who knows, you might even create more time for yourself to do actually all the things that you want to do, which is hopefully why you got into business in the first place, right? Is to be able to create some sort of time, value, wealth, freedom for yourself. But
yeah,
yeah,
that's so true, because sometimes we find with business owners as well, because they spend so much time working in the business, they're constantly in the business, it's non-stop, and actually it's consumed their whole life. They've spent, the last 15 years, 20 years working within the business, and it's just consumed them, and they haven't been able to think about growth because they're so consumed into the day-to-day, and they haven't had the time to step back and just look and look at it from a fresh pair of eyes, or just slightly open up the field of view. Normally it's just very fixated on the problem, but stepping back allows them to think with more clarity.
Yeah, actually, Jaz, we should do an episode on that, because stepping back to think with clarity, not only about your business, but actually what you want out of life and how this business can provide that for you is so important. And, Jaz and I have a process where, when we work with clients, one of the things that we do is look at their kind of mission, vision, and values, not for the business, but for you as an individual, and figuring that out. Because once you've got that North Star of understanding what you want out of life, you can really start to work backwards to figure out how this business can provide everything that you want in your life, and what's most important to you. But we really should do an episode on that one time, Jess.
Definitely should. I mean, we've come across an instant where we had a business owner who his life was the business, and for his family, he was getting too old. He needed to step out, sold the business, but actually realised he had nothing else, and because he hadn't had the time to think about what else he wanted, and really missed being in the business. So there is a lot more to life, and sometimes you do just need to step back and see what you want.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, great. We should do an episode on that later on. Mm-hmm. Okay, so time to land this spaceship. So I guess what we've covered is just really ensuring that you document everything in your business, try and for operational excellence and maximum value, and make sure you start to take the steps slowly to do that. In the next episode, we're going to be talking about the actual exit journey. What happens when you start to list your business, when you go to market, and Jaz and I will talk to you about the various things, various ways that your business can sell, and so on and so forth. So stay tuned for that episode. So thank you, Jaz.
Thank you, Alvin. I just want to add one more thing. I'm going to give our listeners some homework to do. So what I want you guys to do is go away before the next episode, start thinking about your business. Just take some time out, just take half an hour out to just do a self-audit on your business. Just think about it from the mindset that if you were to sell your business in, say, 5 years' time or 3 years' time, based on what you've heard today, what 3 actions do you need to take to make your business more sellable and ensure you maximize your value? And actually, once you've done that exercise, please list top 3 things that you're going to do differently in your business, so we can all share. And maybe in the next episode, we can actually put together a list of what the common themes are amongst all our listeners.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Awesome. I love homework.
I'll give you a bit of homework as well, Alvin, for our next episode.
Cool. Well, until next time, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.